Well, who's ready to fabricate some more farm equipment? So we got some 20-foot lengths of tube here. This is 3x5 tube, 1/4-inch wall, and we're gonna start a pretty big build today. So this is a project that I'm doing for a friend of mine. It's for the same guy that I built the wheel ditch filler implement for. He actually wants me to build him a trailer now where he can put gravel or dirt or whatever into, and it has a hopper on it, and it'll have a hydraulic slide gate on the bottom, and he'll be able to drag it behind his tractor and open that slide gate and fill the wheel ditches so that once the material kind of dissipates, you know, that other implement that I built him, it's great, but those tires track the material, move the material, and you end up losing it, and then you're just left with a big cavity, a big ditch. He needs to be able to fill material back into that ditch. So that's going to be the point of this build. This is probably going to be several episodes in the series. I'm glad you guys are along for the ride. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started. So we are going to get started on the wheel ditch filler trailer. I've got some drawings here. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. This is what it's going to look like. I've got dimensions. So all that's left to do now, we're going to treat this just like every other project. I'm going to go through and get a cut list together and figure out what pieces I need and start cutting parts. Sure wish I had that new bandsaw here, but can't wait, so got to get going. So we'll go over to the saw and start cutting these. Pop! Boom. Going on, guys, we're back at it today. Let me show you where we're at. We got all of our parts cut, so they're all just kind of waiting to be tacked up. But here's the issue we've run into. You can see that 3D model there. So if you look at the dimensions here and that drawing, hopefully you can see the way that corner's laid out. They didn't split the angle there. So where this piece meets this piece, that angle's not split. This piece is square, and then this piece has an angle to meet up with that one. The reason you don't want to do that is when this one meets up to this one, you're left with a cavity on the inside of this one because it's turned on an angle. And so it would be really hard to fill that in. You can kind of see what I'm seeing right there in the corner. That's why you want to split the angle. So lucky for me, I was able to draft it up on my software and draft it up to where they both meet, and I'll show you that, and then split the angle. And it's a 16.5 degree angle on both pieces. So when the 16.5 degree meets a 16.5 degree, they have a baby, and they make a 33 degree joint, basically. But I'll show you what I mean. So you can see here I've got my side piece, and it meets the tapered piece on the front of the trailer, and they split that angle. So you don't have a square one here with one that has a 33, what did I say it was? Well, heck, I'll just show you. So if I was to draft that right now, this kind of shows you. Okay, so I've split the angle. So this is the angle. This is what both tubes are going to have. Both this piece and the bottom piece are going to have this 16.5 degree angle. And when they meet up together, that's going to make a 33 degree angle, basically. Okay, if I was to do it the way it is in the drawing, let me show you what that would look like. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about here. Okay, so you've got, here's your straight piece, here's the angled piece. If you only have one square one and one with an angle, then you're left with this big cavity here that you have to fill in. That's no bueno. Typically when I build a trailer frame, I like everything to be sealed up. You don't want water getting in there because then it can freeze and expand and it'll split the tube. It can rust out from the inside out. There's just a lot of things, a lot of reasons you don't want to do that. You want to seal it up. So we're going to change a few things. This is one of the things we're going to change, and we're going to do it this way to where we put the angle on both legs and they meet up and fit nicely like this, and then it will be a lot easier to weld as well. So 16.5 degree. So now we know what angle we need to cut these. We're probably going to have to cut that by hand. If I had that new fancy bandsaw, I'd be cutting it with that, but I don't. So looks like we're going old-fashioned. All right, so here's another thing that we're going to change. If you look at this drawing, the 3D model shows these tubes being open, and this drawing does as well. You can see they just ran the tube on the side to the end, and that leaves the end open. We don't want to do that. We want to 45 those corners and be able to seal that up. So that's what we're going to do. All right, I'm going to get set up real quick. I've got a grab. I'm going to cut them with a torch. We're going to go real old school. So I'm going to go ahead and cut them with a torch. You could cut these with a zip disc, but then you got to listen to all that. I'm just going to go ahead and cut it with a torch, and then we'll clean it up with a grinder. And I guess we'll listen to the anyway, but not quite as much. Let me get all set up. We'll come back to you when we're ready to cut these. So I want to show you how I'm going to lay these out. So we'll just lay this one out together, and then I'm just going to go through and cut them all because it's pretty much the same process for all of them. So we know that our angle needs to be, this needs to be the long side and this needs to be the short side. When I say that, I've got 16.5 degrees on my protractor here. So we need to lay this out like this. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to make sure that this edge is tangent with this corner. I take a nice sharp soapstone and I just lay that out there. This is going to be a straight line, so I'm going to lay this out. Okay. And then you always want to make sure that you lay it out the same way, meaning you don't want to have one going this way and one going this way on the other side. Okay, so then I'll show you what you're left with. So you can see it hits right on the edge of this tube here. Angle comes down, meets up with your square line, and then same thing here. Okay, so that one's ready to cut. Okay, so I'm going to lay those all out the same way. I'm going to lay this one out. I'm going to lay that one out. And I actually haven't cut the two angle pieces here because I wanted to lay it out on the computer and get a distance, because when you do this kind of angle versus what was on the drawing, that's going to change the length. So now that I have it drawn on the computer, I can pull a measurement, see what these lengths are, and cut those to length. So I'm going to also do that. starting to fit this frame. You can see I've turned my long pieces on the sawhorses. I got a couple pieces of plate clamped to the bottom here. Got my trusty fireball square there. We're going to use that to fit up these corners. Getting some pretty good joints. You can see there's a little bit of gap there, but we'll be able to fill that. I got some levels on it to make sure everything's level. These sawhorses aren't going to be perfect. The floor is not perfect, so there's a lot of variables here. So we're going to go ahead and keep everything level. We're going to check everything to avoid twisting this frame as we fit it. We'll just kind of work our way around. Put some good tacks on it. Sometimes I'll use these little brass wedges to level things up if I need to. Alright, so here's the next one that's going to go in place. It's going to make it kind of tough to get this welded up, this inside, but I think we can still get to it. I do want to get this one in place. I am going to hold it back just a little bit. I don't believe this is a crucial measurement. I checked the plans. This can float just a little bit. All it is a cross brace. So I'm just going to get a tack on it to start. There we go. Tack the same side. The other thing I want to check is straight up and down. A lot of times when I'm fitting iron, I like to use a dead blow hammer because it's not near as hard on your ears, but you can still get things to move pretty good. All right, we got us a rectangle. Now, I need to go around and check my levels, make sure nothing's moved. This is still good. Okay, everything's looking good so far. Now we're ready to start fitting the tongue. I'm going to grab some more pipe stands. We'll set these two in here. Start finagling these. All right, so now we're working on the tongue. I've got a level on it. Clamped a piece of plate here, so I've got my tongue piece set on that plate. I've centered this. And it is directly centered. Okay, so I'm going to get a tack on this. The other thing I've done is I've checked this for square, and it is beautiful. Now I'm going to take these angle pieces and get them up here. Okay. So I'll get all this stuff in place. We'll come back to you when we're ready to tack these up. All right, quick update. Let's show you guys what we got here. We are going to have to correct an issue, so I'll show you guys what we got. Okay, so we got these angle pieces in place. Now, if you look here on this end, you can see there's a gap on the inside there, right here. And if you come down here, on the heel, you can see the heel is touching, but it is not here. So I'm going to take this distance, what that gap is, and I'm going to trim it down here on the heel. And it's consistent. This one's the same way. Okay, so the heel hits, there's about a 1/4 inch gap there. Same thing there. Now the good thing is, once I trim that heel and make this parallel, when I close that up, it's also going to close this gap up. So hopefully that'll fix it. So I'm going to get the torch out. I'm going to whittle this off on the heel side here, and then I'll go ahead and clean it up with a grinder, and we'll come back and we'll show you guys what it looks like. Okay, we've got this in place. It did close this up a little bit. Still a little bit of gap, but it's weldable. This side looks beautiful. Alright guys, you can see we've got these two internal supports tacked in place. I'm working on getting these smaller ones tacked in place. It is snug as a bug in a rug. Whoa. Until you get to the bottom. I'll tell you what, if things don't work out with the farming thing, I'll bet the circus would hire him out. He could haul elephants with this sucker, because it is built. This thing is built for some weight. Just the frame alone is freaking heavy. It's the first piece I haven't had to trim or grind. All right, something else I want to throw out there. I know I've brought this up before, but I'm going to bring it up again. So when you tack something like this, it's always a good idea to put your tacks where you can get a zip disc into in case you need to cut it apart and shift something or pull something back square or whatever. I know because I've had to do it way too many times. If you put your tacks where you can get to them, then it's not as big a deal. You can hurry and cut your tacks, pull things back square, retack it, and keep rolling. But if you even put just one tack in a bad place where you can't get to it, now it turns into a whole fiasco. Because one tack can hold things a lot better than you think. So just make sure when you're tacking stuff like this together, you put those tacks where you can get to them. Always on the corners. I can get a zip disc in there. Okay, so the next order of business, I've got two supports that go in the tongue here. I mean, I'm telling you guys, this thing is built. So there's two pieces that go in here. So I'm going to have to miter the piece that butts up against this support. So we'll get those all prepped up, and then we'll come back to you. All right, guys, I figured this was probably worth showing. for something like this, if you wanted to put a support in here, you need to figure out this angle. This is the way I figured it out. There's lots of different ways you could do this. This is just the way I decided to do it. So I held this square here. You do either way. If you hold it square here, hold it square here. So I held it square. Then I took my protractor and I held it up against the square, and then I was able to check and see that the blade on my protractor was on the correct angle, and so I just lined it up with the inside of the tube here, and then I carefully tightened the screws on it, and I ended up getting 32 degrees. So this is a 32-degree angle off the end. So now we can go over, we'll mark our tube with our 30-degree miter, and we'll be able to cut that and slap those in place. Okay, I'm having to stop every little bit and then restart, so I know my acetylene's too low. So I'm just going to stop and turn that up just a little bit. You can already tell it's better. Okay. Alright, miter looks good. See if we're square. It's dang close, but it looks pretty good. So I'm going to get a tack on this. Alright guys, we got the last support tacked in place here. So this is all the structural tube that makes up the trailer frame. Everything's tacked in place. Everything's nice and level, square, feeling good about it. So now all that's left to do is to start welding this up. So I'm going to bounce around, and I don't want to put too much weld on one side or another. We've got to bounce around to keep distributing the heat and making sure that we don't pull too much one way so that we pull it out of square or out of level. So I'm just going to start working on the main welds that hold the frame together. So I'll get those two back corners welded up, probably the verticals and the top, and then I'll come down here and do some, these ones are obviously pretty crucial. If I get some good weld on the main outside structure of the frame, that should hold everything together so that I can flip it over and do a little bit on the bottom side as well. I am going to do a calculation to see what this weighs before I try to flip it. I shouldn't have all the weight on the crane, but I basically have 3.5 lengths of 3x5 1/4 inch rec tube here, so I've got to do a calculation real quick to see how much weight that is, because my crane's only rated for a ton. So I don't think this is quite 2,000 pounds, but if I was to guess, I'm guessing probably closer to 1,000 maybe. So I'm going to do a calculation, see what it weighs, and then I know that I'll be safe to be able to roll it, position it. I'm going to stand it up on its side so I can get a lot of these. I always like to position things so that I can weld things flat. I know there's a lot of people out there that will say, well, you just need to weld it out of position. And I could, sure I could, but it's not going to look near as good. And if I can position it and weld it flat, why wouldn't I? Because they're prettier welds. Personally, I believe it's a more sound weld. Structurally, it's going to be more strong, and you're able to make sure you tie the corners in. It's better, in my opinion, if you can position it to weld it flat. I think it's great to know how to weld in all the different positions, but if you can position things to where you can weld them flat, I say do it, because the end product is always going to look better, in my opinion. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, speed up the film here. This is going to take me quite a while, so we'll go ahead and see what we can get welded out on this. Once we get the frame all welded out, then we're going to start moving into the axles and, you know, things like the jack that goes on the tongue. So there's a lot of things that need to happen still, but I think the next order of business after this is welded out is figuring out the axles, and that is a crucial part of this process. So let's see what we can get done here, and then we'll come back to you when we're ready to start fitting axles. All right, guys, I wanted to stop real quick, and there's a situation here that, you know, if you're doing something like this, it's probably pretty common that you're going to run into this situation, and I want to show you how I handle it. So you can see we got some gap here, some pretty good gap. So there's probably 1/8 of an inch here, and it kind of tapers down. It's not terrible, but if I was to try and just run this, it would most likely just blow out, because you can see that I've got it beveled too, because I want to get 100% pen. I would probably just trigger this up and fill up the first pass, and you got to trigger it to be able to do that so that you don't blow it out. So I would fill it up, and then I'll take a grinder, grind it back out, and then run a pretty one over the top of it. That's how I handle this type of situation. On these outside corners, you can see that one looks pretty good. It's pretty tight, but I'll trigger that one up as well, and then I'll maybe clean that up with a flap disc. And then if I still don't like the way it looks, I'll go ahead and run another one over the top of it, and I'll just trigger it. But it ends up looking pretty decent. Here's one that I triggered. So you can see it just kind of gives it a stacked dime look, and then I do clean it up with a flap disc. But that's how I handle that type of situation. Dealing with gap is something you're gonna run into, and you know, when you have a T-joint like this one with tube, the way I run these is I run one on this corner. I kind of tip my gun this way and favor this tube, because it's not going to blow out if I'm directing my heat here. And then I just kind of let it wash into this. And typically that's not enough to fill up this joint. And so I'll angle the gun this way and run this one. And then if it's still a little bit concave, then I'll take and run another pretty one over the top of it. So I just wanted to give you guys some info on this, on how I do it. I'm going to throw on the meta glasses and see if I can video how I run this one, and hopefully it'll be clear enough you guys can see it. So let me go grab them and we'll show you guys. Okay, so I got the glasses on, The only way that you guys can really see what I'm doing with these glasses is if I have a brand new lens in my hood. So I've changed both lenses, inside and outside. Hopefully it's clear enough that you guys can see what I'm doing. So we'll see if we can get some video of this. Okay, so I'm just going to start here. Put a tack, put a tack, put a tack, put a tack. See how it kind of gets really close to blowing through? That's why I just trigger this up, go back and forth. The reason I go back and forth is while I'm over here, this one's cooling. So it gives each tack a chance to cool. Okay. Now you can see what that looks like. And now I'll take a grinder and I'll grind that out, make sure I knock all the slag off, and then we'll show you guys what it looks like. Okay, so you can see that's nothing to write home about. Okay, but I did grind that out. I think I am going to hit that just a little bit more. Don't mind this little. All right, so I got that. Okay, so I got this all gouged out. Now I'm going to run a pretty one over the top of it, and I don't have to worry about it blowing through. Okay, so here we go. Just got to make sure I pause and let that fill up. You don't want any undercut, so you got to make sure you let it fill up. Okay, so we'll let that cool. I'm going to grab a wire wheel. So the spatter. Take my fireball scraper. Knock the spatter off. Okay, so there's what we're looking at. You see it's nice and convex. I don't have any undercut. Everything looks good there, and that is solid. So that's kind of what we're going for. Okay, so that's how I do it. Hope you guys got something out of that. All right, let's see if we can get this welded out. Who's ready to fabricate some more farm equipment? Well, who's ready to